I'm here with the great Dr. Suggs, and Dr. Suggs was invited to judge the Tube Council's Tube of the Year Awards. I mean, look at all these tubes. It is incredible, the amount of innovations, the different materials that are being presented here, the different functions, different way everything came together.
Categories from personal care, dentistry, industrial, and we're going to talk through some of the tubes that that were, I guess, more of like standouts for us this year.
In this video, you will learn about some current material trends in tubes. You will be able to define PCR and understand why it's important. We will also cover some popular barrier types for packaging tubes, including EVOH. We will discuss tube recycling and the way it is communicated on packages. And lastly, we will highlight some unique tube designs that are setting a new standard for the future.
One thing that really stood out to me was that companies are blending polyethylene, the different densities of polyethylene actually. So we have, typically I think, we've got low density and high density polyethylene. So you think about those grocery bags of high density polyethylene, but here, when a lot of these, we're mixing together high density and medium density polyethylene, as well as low density polyethylene and medium density polyethylene, just to have that, just another way to get a little bit less weight.
Awesome.
So also a big theme that we saw was a lot of PCR, and that is post-consumer recycled content, which is great because we're taking materials that are packaging materials, collecting them, and then putting them back into packaging, which is where I think packaging should do. It should become more packaging. And we've got some great examples here. On this one in particular, 70% post-consumer recycled content. Varies across the board. One thing that I'd like to point out here is that this particular design uses raw aluminum, and it's not that bad. I mean, I like aluminum. I like aluminum a lot, and they didn't put a print layer on it. They didn't coat it with a bunch of stuff. They didn't do a soft. I mean, I just think aluminum, it just generally feels nice, and they use that raw form, for the package type.
So tell us about the back of it. Do they tell us any specifics on how we actually should recycle it?
They do, and they give it in, this is not a US-based package, but they clearly designate this as aluminum and to recycle into that aluminum feedstock.
Awesome, love it. We're talking a lot about EVOH barriers. That seems like a big category or, a big barrier item for a lot of these personal care items. Why do you think that is, Dr. Hurley, and do we need that in the future?
I thought it was interesting that in these laminate structures that the print area used that EVOH material, and so they applied it directly onto the base substrate, which is typically polyethylene.
Yep.
However, there was a really interesting tube. This is not a branded one, but this uses a polyethylene with an aluminum, and they claim this is EVOH free, and because aluminum has some great barrier properties as well. But combining here, we thought this was pretty innovative.
Yeah, and they actually make a point to say that, compared to the tube laminate, so also just comparing these two, this one is just, obviously they're going to say it's better, but they use a recycle class criteria to kind of categorize it. So that's fun. And again, like Dr. Hurley said, it's only made of, monomaterial.
So another topic on tubes is recycling. And I know it's a contentious topic and trying to understand, can you actually recycle these things? And what we found in this overview of tubes is that there's a lot of different claims here. Obviously we have our please recycle.
It is, yes.
When I see this, I think, please tell me how to recycle it, because you're not telling me what's going on here. So we saw quite a bit of this, just the chasing arrows saying, please recycle me.
And so Dr. Hurley, for that one too, we know that one, as in Dr. Hurley and I know that one's made of PCR, but the consumer does not know that.
It's correct. And even though that this is great, it's using a high level of post-consumer recycled content, it is not in a format that anyone's going to recycle this because they just don't know what it is. And then we have things that may have some conflicting messaging. So we have a particular tube that it says clearly is using Green Blues, how to recycle tile, and it says, hey, this is not recyclable. But then we have TerraCycle on top of it. And TerraCycle is a program that they will come up and pick this up for you and repurpose it in some way, maybe refill it, or it's a program in order to dispose of the product when it's done.
Dr. Hurley, have you used TerraCycle? Is it easy? Is it accessible for like the normal consumer out there?
I mean, it was a long time ago when I had interactions with it, but I know that it's limited in certain places in the country, but it may have expanded out from now. But there is that particular end-of-life claim on this package. Then we have some pretty bold ones where not just does it say to recycle it, it goes into detail saying that this is a polyethylene tube. It says a number 2 plastic, and go ahead and recycle it. So it's telling you specifically to do it, and it even has the cap, and it's telling you exactly what to do with the cap.
And then this one also does that with LDPE. It tells us exactly it's number 4. We know that's the resin code, and we like to see that.
This one, on the other hand, instead of taking the content and different densities, this one took some structural innovations.
Yeah.
They go through and talk through like micron thin that this laminate is able to be. They also mix the densities of the materials, so it's really a structural innovation. But my favorite part here is that they created the most lightweight closure system I've ever seen. So they took time to like drill out all of the unnecessary components of the closure. All of this has been removed. So they cored out, if you think about a clock, I mean, there's maybe like 35 that's left on this closure, and it fits really well. I mean, it's pretty incredible, the stability of this and how it opens and closes and functions just like something that might be 3 times the weight.
Yeah.
So I thought this was a really interesting innovation.
Yeah, and apparently that closure, they have cited that it's 60% lighter than other closures on the market. So again, pretty cool innovation for design. I don't know if we'll see that more in the future.
Yeah. So when I think about like concluding all of this, it just talks about how important packaging education is. If you don't understand materials, you're at a huge loss. Because not just the material type here, but the densities of those materials. And then the production processes of these materials. Like if you want a particular barrier, we're gonna go lamination route. If you're gonna be really looking at mixing these different densities of materials, we're gonna go the co-extrusion route. And then decoration and to the materiality of where the materials came from, and then engineering those materials to perform specific functions. I mean, tubes has it all.
I know, and this also reminds me that designing tubes and all packaging for that matter is just a multitude of stakeholders that have to be involved. Like when you think about this, like Dr. Hurley and I have talked about production, we've talked about design elements, we've talked about a big part about sustainability. That means that so many people have to be involved in these discussions. So that's why at the packaging school we talk about all of these different elements for that holistic understanding of packaging.
Absolutely, Dr. Suggs.